guys with their nails done.
Making a generalized Warframe tier list is inappropriate in my opinion. That's one hard lesson I've learned from the past. I say this because frames are not like guns and melee weapons. Unlike weapons, which only main purpose is to kill enemies at the fastest time possible, frames can be used in different ways. With their unique abilities, they can be great in terms of damage, crowd control, supporting allies, pacifying enemies, or even defending a team. But that's the only reason why tier list is inappropriate. We must also take into consideration that the game doesn't revolve in just one goal. It's not like any battle royale game in which players' goal is to be the last man standing. Warframe has a variety of missions. In this game, you can do spy missions, extractions, survival, idle and hunting, the new Railjack missions, and so much more. With that being said, obviously, some frames can do those missions at the quickest time possible. This is the purpose of this mini-series, to give you an idea of what are the best frames for specific tasks in the game. To start with, let's discuss those frames who I consider to be great protectors. I'm talking about those frames which you can rely on when it comes to defending objectives. In short, the best defensive frames in this game. Welcome lads. Join me for a couple of minutes as we uncover the best when it comes to defense. As always, don't forget to like if you find this video amusing, and subscribe if you want to see more informative videos from this channel. Okay, let's do this Tenno. So when do we consider a frame great when it comes to defense? Honestly, it's hard to determine which are the best defensive frames when we will just take a look at each of their skill sets alone. For example, Banshee can be great not just defending an objective, but also her teammates, by modding her with lots of range, max efficiency, negative duration, and with the resonating quake augment. With this build, you can spam her fourth ability to knock down enemies, and you can also stun them with your silence for a couple of seconds. Yes, crowd control can be a good source of defense if you mod your frame for this purpose. Not only crowd control, but also frames that can kill enemies fast can also be great in defending. Remember the saying, the best defense is a good offense? This is also applicable to Warframe. Frames like Saturn, or even Mesa, can clear a room full of enemies easily, that you won't need any defensive abilities to protect an objective or your teammates. With these things in mind, we definitely can say that possibly all frames can be good in defense when modded well, although this can be true sometimes. Let's not forget the fact that crowd control, and as well as DPS would not be enough, especially if we are defending an objective against high-level units. Aside from enemy levels, there are also the likes of nullifiers, that can easily stop frames like these from being efficient in defense missions. Not to mention that they are immune to some crowd control abilities, while others give out tremendous damage mitigation to their allies. If these enemies are in the field, then you can expect that a single bullet coming from an enemy could lead to your team being wiped out, or even your defense objective being destroyed or killed. That is why, when we talk about the ultimate defense in this game, we talk about those things that are impenetrable. Say, for example, Frost Snow Globe. I know some of you expected Frost in this video, and you are correct with this one. You are just wrong about one thing though. He is not my number one defensive frame for this year. I will reveal that later, but for now, let's talk about this frame. Frost has been one of the top dogs when it comes to defense for how many years now? There are a couple of frames that have been added to the game, but still, Frost stays relevant not only because of his chilling persona, but also because he got the right tools to let you go endlessly in a defense-type mission. His snow globe is one hell of a defensive skill. Once this frame casts this ability in a specified location, expect that all that it covers will be well protected, even against high-level enemies. The thing about Snow Globe is that, it doesn't only protect you from outside projectiles, but it also has this slow effect that allows you to react once enemies are inside your globe. The best part is, giving Frost high efficiency will allow you to literally spam your Snow Globe, and take advantage of that 4 seconds invulnerability period. Not to mention that it can push back enemies hit by this ability. And to top all of that, you have full control over where to place the globe, or how small or big the globe will be. This means that, you can mod, and use it on a specified mission. If the missions have nullifiers, then you can mod your frost with just enough range to defend a target location, while keeping it out of reach from nullifiers. Or, if you are up against infested units, then either go with max range, or just enough to take advantage of its slow effect. And one last thing, Snow Globe can hit up 1,000,000 health if you stack a globe on top of an already damaged Snow Globe. Knowing the fact that you can mod Frost to spam Snow Globe, it is safe to say that the 1,000,000 health, plus the invulnerability and the slow are one of the perfect forms of defense in the game. Another frame that I consider great in defending is Nova. But before we discuss this frame further, I would like to say that the frames included in this video are in no particular order. I don't intend to give you just one top defensive frame, so you will just use it for the entirety of your gameplay. Instead, I created this video to give you an idea of how to use each defensive frame, and give you options to suit your playstyle. Also, be sure to watch until the end, since I will be showing also how you can make some of your favorite frames a defensive anchor in the team. Okay, let's get back with Nova. This frame is blessed with one hell of a crowd control ability, which can be used as a great defensive skill. Her molecular prime will slow down every enemy affected by this ability, and when I say every enemy, this means everything that you see as a threat in a mission. I know that it's a form of crowd control, and just like what I've said earlier, crowd control would not be enough sometimes, especially when dealing with high-level enemies. However, the efficiency and the range of Molecular Prime is incomparable to other crowd control turned defensive abilities. You can just sit in the defense target, cast Molecular Prime, and you'll never see anyone coming to your party. If Nova's crowd control doesn't impress you, and you want something like Frost's Snow Globe, then you can always try out frames like Vauban. I know that you can't compare Frost and Vauban since Frost doesn't allow any projectile to hit anyone who is inside the globe. But the thing is, Vauban's Bastille can be used in two different ways, which allows it to be an effective form of crowd control, which turns it to a good defensive ability. Bastille can restrain enemies in its dome-like form, while it has a massive pull and group radius when you turn it to a vortex. It may seem to be a versatile form of defense, but just like I've said, it falls behind Snow Globe at endgame levels, as sometimes the guns of enemies are far superior in terms of range compared to how far Vauban can restrain and pull them. Not to mention that Bastille is very susceptible to Nullifucker's nullifying field. There are other options if you don't like Vauban. You can always use Khora and her strangled dome. This ability is somehow similar to Vauban's Bastille, but only have a bonus feature. It can also restrain enemies, and as well as pull them towards your location. The only difference is, all enemies captured in the dome will be dealt with an additional 200% damage from weapons and other abilities. It's a good way to defend a target location or objective, but as I've said earlier, it's still not as strong as Frost's Snow Globe. If there's an ability that comes close to Frost's Snow Globe, that would be Gara's Mass Vitrify. But honestly, this is a weaker version of Snow Globe. It doesn't have invulnerability, and the glass walls can easily break with just a few hits. The good thing about Gara's Mass Vitrify though, is it's a combination of crowd control, defense, and damage buff. Not only does it protect a target, but it also freezes those enemies that caught by the glass wall, and they will receive additional damage from weapons and abilities once they are frozen. Honestly, I can consider Gara as a jack of all trades, and not purely a defensive type frame. She can shift to both offense and defense, but she's not capable of mitigating enemy fire for a very long time. From all the frames I have mentioned earlier, you can conclude that Frost is probably the top when it comes to defending in this game. Well, I can't argue on that in the past, but over the years, Warframe had received various changes and several features that both nerf and transcended non-meta things into probably the most effective methods to use right now. So, for my favorite defensive frame this year, I'm going with my JoJo guts. I'm going with Limbo. There's no denying that Limbo is one of the best when it comes to defense, and in fact, he has been one of the most go-to frames when it comes to defending an objective. The only thing that was lacking with Limbo in the past is a reliable source of survivability, whenever he's shifting from his world to the real world. I'm talking about his Rift Walk. Whenever Limbo is at their Rift plane, he is invincible. But when he gets back to the real world, he is very prone to being one hit. He needs something to give him time and cast his crowd control abilities. And thanks to the rolling guard mod, Limbo can now freely move between Rift and reality, and have some time to cast his abilities. But squad leader, Limbo's Cataclysm is prone to being dismantled by nullifiers easily. That will be true if you will just mod your Limbo with max range all the time. The proper way of defending with Limbo is knowing when to use a max range or max duration only build. It's the key to being the best defensive Warframe in the game. A max range Limbo would be very effective against Infested and Grineers, since there will be no special enemies that will pop your Cataclysm. While it's better to have a max duration build against Corpus and Orokin enemies, since nullifiers are present on these factions. The other thing that's very good with Limbo is that he can manipulate where to place his Cataclysm. With enough or minimal range, you can easily place your Cataclysm to wherever you want. And lastly, he regenerates energy when you killed an enemy inside the rift, and your allies, and as well as your companion can benefit to the invulnerability given by your rift plane. Clearly, Limbo is one heck of a frame when it comes to controlling the battlefield, and defending objectives. Given with the right mod setup, then players won't consider you as just a troll, but a force to be reckoned with. So that's my top pick for my favorite defensive frames this year. Just like I've said earlier, some of the frames are also capable of defending if you give them the right mod setup, and it will be featured right after this outro. So good day lads. Enjoyed the rest of the video. Squad leader signing off.
Girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done. Girls with their girls with their nails done now. Girls with their nails done. Girls with their nails done.